Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Opening Act, a podcast interview show with me, your host, Brandon Hilder. On today's episode, we have Randy Johnson. How are you doing today, Randy?
I'm doing great, Brandon.
That's good. Good days are always wonderful, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you're retired, pretty much every day is a good day.
There you go. So, when did you first discover your love for baseball?
Baseball was a big part of our family. I had two older brothers that played. My dad was more of a softball player than baseball, but he worked with us constantly. It ran in our blood, the family's blood. We were a sports family, but the kids were mainly baseball, and I branched off to football as well later in my high school career. But from day one, when I put on a Little League uniform at 6 years old or 7 years old, I was in love with the game.
When did you figure out what position you wanted to play? And how did that all go down?
Well, I was a catcher in Little League and a pitcher, and played a little bit of shortstop as I moved up. I basically played short all through high school, Little League, high school, junior college, and college. And being that I wasn't the swiftest and didn't have the greatest range, I was moved to third base in professional baseball after a half season of struggling a bit at shortstop.
Could you tell me a little bit about the college baseball days?
I went to Palomar Junior College for a couple of years. I missed most of my freshman year with a broken thumb. Actually, I was playing first base at the time. Had a really good sophomore year. Had a better year in football as a kicker. So I was recruited at Florida State, Fullerton State, San Jose State. And because the baseball programs were so highly rated, and football programs weren't great at Florida State and Fullerton State, I didn't want to sit the bench, is what I'm saying. So I was afraid if I went there, I wouldn't start because their baseball programs were so good. So I picked San Jose State.
Yeah.
My junior year was, again, injury marred, and then I had a really good senior year and got drafted in the 11th round by the Mets.
So when you were drafted, how did that feel?
Well, it felt great. I thought I might go a little higher, being that I had such good numbers, but after all my years of scouting now, I realized why I didn't, because there wasn't a lot of upside to me. I just worked hard and became a good player, and I was a smart player. But guys with my skill set are usually 8th, 9th, 10th round guys. They hope I acquire power down the road, which I never really did. And being that I was a third baseman, it's pretty much prerequisite to have a lot of home run power. So being able to play different positions was my ticket to the big leagues. That's what got me there, and I ended up being a utility player pretty much my whole career.
Well, and also, so you always hear these stories about players making it to the major leagues and all these amazing stories, but a lot of the stories from the minors are often lost. Do you have any special memories from playing the Mets and Braves minor league systems in the late 70s and early 80s?
It was tough. I mean, obviously, not being a high draft pick, you felt like every day was critical, and I always felt that my days were numbered, and my backup plan was to go try to kick for somebody in the NFL. Luckily, that never happened. I played hard. I got hurt because I played hard, but I got the most out of my ability. Minor league-wise, I mean, it's just the camaraderie, the friends you make. I still have friends today that I keep in touch with that I met in my first couple of years.
Wow.
And all throughout my career. So story-wise, probably the biggest and best story for me was in AAA with the Braves. I was basically thinking I was going to get released any day. I was basically sitting the bench, not getting much playing time, and our third baseman, Steve Hammond was his name. He's now an agent. Was playing basketball with a bunch of the guys and fell down and broke his elbow. So lo and behold, I got to play every day at third base for the remainder of the year, and that was the best and most productive year of my career. And the following year, I made the big club. So that's not a funny story or anything like that, but it was a big break that I needed, and I took advantage of it.
When you did make your major league debut, that was against the Pirates. What was it like when you got that call and when you got to play that very first game?
scary. I mean, most people don't realize the nerves involved in playing a sport, or especially at the highest level. Is I was shaking like a leaf. My legs felt like my legs were shaking. I didn't do too well at it, but I struck out, which I didn't do very often in my career. So it was frustrating. It turned out the guy I struck out against, Tom Griffin, was actually living in the same city as me later on in my career, and we ran into each other, and I always talked about it, said he owned me. And that was a rough beginning to my career, but it was nothing to write home about. It's not what I wanted to do my first at bat, but I had a few more after that, so that was good.
Yeah. And then on May 18th of that same year, 1982, you got your first MLB hit, and that was against Bill Gullickson of the Expos. What was it like getting that first hit?
It was huge, and I ended up facing him quite a bit in Japan.
Oh, wow.
So I always talked about that. I got my first hit off him, and I had some luck against him in the big leagues. I didn't have a lot of luck in Japan because they played me to right center so much. I mean, Cromartie would be playing, who was his center fielder in Tokyo, would play me in right center, and I hit so many balls, and it normally would have been in the gap that he ran down. So we had some good laughs about that.
That's so cool that you got to play against him in the MLB and then back down in Japan as well. That is really special. And then talking about like the first hit, things like that, have you kept any of your milestone baseballs?
I got all my my first home run and my first hit balls are still on my shelf. I don't know if the writing's still there because things fade out so much over the years, but yeah. I do have those. I have a decent collection of stuff from my Braves teams and from other Hall of Famers. So I'm pretty proud of the collection I do have.
Wow, that is so cool. What's your favorite piece in that collection?
Oh, when I was in spring training with the Giants in '86. I got to meet both Willie Mays and Willie McCovey.
Wow!
And I got a nice picture taken of me in between them. And for years, it was unautographed. And I ran into Willie Mays at an Old Timers game, and he signed it. And then probably 10 years ago, I was in spring training scouting and asked the clubhouse guy if he thought Willie McCovey would sign my photo. So he brought me down in the dugout, and Willie McCovey was so gracious and asked me who the good-looking guy was in the picture, and I said, "Oh, that's you." But no, he was so nice, and that's my pride and joy. I got it on top of my TV, and that's number one. I got another one with Alan Trammell and Al Kaline. I also have a jersey of both of those guys' signatures, a Tiger jersey. So I have some fun stuff in my office here.
Wow, that is so cool. I myself am also a collector of baseballs, baseball cards, stuff like that, signed photos. Who are some of your favorite teammates to play with in the MLB?
Oh, my best friend was Matt Sinatra and Brad Commons, a couple of guys that I played with in the minor leagues. Dale Murphy was my favorite teammate, being that he was the best player I ever played with, obviously, and the best I would say the best in the major leagues during that era. Bob Horner, Phil Necro, Bruce Benedict. Sorry to say we've lost quite a few of the guys that I played with, which it's sad. So I know I know we're getting old when things like that start happening, but I had a lot of good teammates, a lot of nice people that I still stay in contact with.
Wow. Do you have any special memories with any of those guys?
Just taking batting practice after Dale Murphy and Bob Horner, I felt like I was a little leaguer. But just watching how Dale went about it, how nice of a person he was, as well as a great baseball player. How good Horner was and how good he could have been if he'd have stayed healthy. Wishing that they didn't trade Phil Necro when they did. And he went on, played about 10 more years after he left the Braves.
Yeah.
But I wish I could remember more. That's the one thing. I only played 3 years in the big leagues, but wish I had more pictures, and I wish I had more things I could remember.
Do you remember what it was like to have your first baseball card?
I know we used to used to collect them, and gosh, we had a huge collection in our attic in our garage, and nobody knows what happened to them. All three of the boys wish they had them, and none of us know what happened to them. My dad might have just taken them and thrown them out. But yeah, I had tons of baseball cards. I think I ended up getting football cards too. The Chargers used to train in Escondido, so I was a big fan of the Chargers when I was a kid as well.
What was it like to have one with you on it?
Weird, very weird. I mean, I still get, I'd say I get 50 to 100 per month, and 10% of the big unit. So I always write on there, say, sorry, this is the wrong Randy Johnson, and send it back to him. But it's neat. Obviously, I wish I could have played more years and had more cards, but just to have one was special. I got one little picture on my wall with 4 of my cards. I think I ended up with 8 or 12 or something like that in my 3 years.
Wow. Do you sign cards through the mail with like fans sending them in?
Oh yeah, I sign them. I usually wait a month and take them all and do it in one sitting. Doesn't take long. Can't imagine what it's like for the really good players. How many they must get every day.
So from 82 to 84, you played in the majors with the Braves. And then from 85 to 86, you played in the minors with the Braves and Giants. And this was something my brother thought was really cool. According to Baseball Reference, you pitched 2 innings in 1986 with the Giants AAA affiliate team. What was it like pitching in a game?
Well, that wasn't a good experience. I was actually the emergency pitcher in Atlanta for 3 years and never got in the game, but I got a few scares. And in AAA with Jimmy Lefevre, I was an emergency guy again, and we were losing, I think it was 19-3 versus Hawaii, and Barry Bonds was on the team. And I came in and tried to throw hard because of my competitiveness, and got out of the first inning, left the bases loaded. In the next inning, I think I threw 60 pitches and gave up 14 runs, all unearned because the first ball hit that inning was an error. So I always tell people I had a 0 ERA, but I gave up 14 runs in 2 innings and threw 86 pitches, I believe, and I was some kind of hurting for the next week. So it wasn't a good experience. I did give up a double to Barry Bonds, so I have that in my repertoire.
Then, of course, in 1987, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, you signed a contract and went and played in Japan with the Toyo Carp. What was different about playing in Japan compared to the MLB?
Well, obviously the language barrier is different. The level was a bit, I want to say a little bit between AA and AAA. We were only allowed 2 Americans or 2 foreigners at the time, what they call gaijins. So it was hard to communicate. We had a good team, but the most frustrating part about Japanese baseball back then was you only played 3.5 hours I believe was the max. So we ended up with quite a few ties, which we'd never heard of before, obviously playing over here. And it almost seemed like sometimes we were trying to play for a tie, stalling and not going all out is what I would say is it was frustrating. And I turned around to my left fielder, Rick Lancelotti, who was with me, and we just shake our heads. But it was frustrating for me as well because I was leading the team in hitting, and I was basically sitting the bench and caddying for Sachio Kinugasa, who had the long playing streak that actually beat Cal Ripken. So it was his last year, and when he faced the right-hander, he would usually get in a bat or 2 and then come out, and then when we were facing left-handers, he'd stay in the whole game, which I loved hitting off lefties. So it was kind of frustrating that I wasn't playing as much as I thought I should have that first year. But it was a great experience. I mean, it was something I'll never forget, and I'll always cherish.
That's really cool. Do you have any favorite stories from being over in Japan?
The best one, lack of communication, comes to mind here. We had a interpreter that was a Hawaiian-born guy that moved back to Japan, and he was older, and he said that they cut his pay like 60%, so he was going to work 60% less. Well, Rick and myself we got a per diem, which included room and food. So we decided to room together for money for monetary purposes to save money. And I don't know how far it was into the season. We were in a room that was the size of a shoehorn and could hardly even move around. All it was the two beds and very little room to walk between the beds. And finally, I said, I got to go get another room. So we went downstairs, got another room, when we went to check out, the price was the exact same as it was when we roomed together. So I asked our interpreter, I said, Wally, why is this the same price? And he goes, oh, they don't charge per room here in Japan. They charge per person. And I said, are you kidding me? You thought that Rick and I wanted to room together this whole time? We thought we were saving money. So he just kind of snickered and laughed, and we were just shaking our head going, come on now. That's 2 or 3 months of rooming together for didn't save a dime. So it was kind of a weird freak deal and very frustrating when we found that out.
I bet. Yeah. Then after you were done playing baseball, you had a career of working with teams, including my favorite team, the A's. What was it like being able to still work for all those ball clubs?
Oh, it was great. I mean, obviously I didn't want to change teams, but I was hired by Randy Smith originally to be a scout. And when he moved, I moved with him. And finally, in 2002, when Dave Dombrowski was hired in Detroit to be the president, he fired Randy, I think 6 or 7 games into the season, and fired me the next day. So we split up for the next 7 years while I was in Oakland, and he got a job back with the Padres. I was able to go back to the Padres as a field coordinator when he became the farm director in 2010 with the Padres. So that was actually probably my most favorite time off the field was those 5 years as the field coordinator and being on the field and doing what I thought I was best at. But yeah, you don't want to get fired, but being able to be with different organizations was kind of cool, and you get to meet more people, and baseball people are great people. Made a lot of good friends. That's the part I miss the most about not being in the game the last couple of years is the guys you meet and the scouts and the friends and the relationships you make over the years.
Wow. Oh, did you have a favorite ballpark to work/play in?
For scouting, Arizona was a great place to scout. I scouted a ton in Petco, the old San Diego Stadium. Or not Petco, the Qualcomm, the old San Diego Stadium. So that was a favorite. L.A., San Francisco is a great place to go, but it wasn't a great place to scout from. But no, all the stadiums now are just beautiful. I wish I could have played in some of those stadiums, and I actually wish I could have played in some of the minor league stadiums. They're so nice now. Playing in a dual-purpose stadium like Atlanta, and back then, crowdskeeping wasn't the art it is now, and these kids are pretty spoiled, even in the minor leagues, with the surfaces they get to play on. Things
have changed a lot, I bet. So, what is your favorite movie?
Oh, probably The Wizard of Oz. Probably the one I've seen the most. Mr. Baseball felt like that was a story of my life, and Tom Selleck was actually Rick Lancelotti, because that's kind of how much he hated being over there. And I was kind of the guy that's trying to keep him from jumping off the roof. But I don't really have a favorite movie, one that I watch all the time. But again, Wizard of Oz was, obviously I saw it as a kid and still watch it every once in a while.
Then this question is one I try to ask every single interview. It comes from my favorite TV show, Chuck. If you were on a deserted island and could have one sandwich with you, what kind would it be? And you can eat the sandwich every day. Give me as much or little detail as you'd like.
Oh, gosh. Years ago, it would have been a bologna sandwich. Probably right now, it'd have to be a sandwich. Could I say an In-N-Out burger?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you know what In-N-Out hamburgers are, but they're
I do.
Huge out here. It's Italian Submarine. I love those.
Oh, yeah. Those are great, too.
Peanut butter and jelly. Peanut butter and jelly was a big one.
Every time I go out to California, we always make sure to stop at the In-N-Out at least once or twice.
It's good.
So do you have any advice for any of the students that may be listening to this podcast? This is kind of a student-oriented podcast, and try to get as many of them as I can to listen to it. So do you have any advice or wisdom for them?
Work hard, play hard, make sure you get your education. I was lucky enough to work, or I wouldn't even call it work, but to be in baseball my whole career and not have to fall back on an education. I was very close to getting my degree in industrial technology and just never went back, mainly because I was able to keep a job in the game and basically, you get a degree in baseball by playing and observing and doing all the things that I did and traveling all over the world. So work hard and don't waste your education. Have fun, but get it done.
Yeah. Well, I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see you later.
All right. See you, buddy. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. But before you go, I just wanted to say thank you to my high school, which is Powell County High School, for letting me use their equipment. Also, big thanks to Mr. McConaughey and Miss Beery and all of the other amazing teachers here for helping make this possible. And also, thank you for listening, because this would not be possible without you. And make sure to subscribe. Have a good one.